Alright, so let me tell y'all about the wildest thing that ever happened to me and my pops out on our family land. Now, I know this sounds crazy, and I get it. If I wasn't there, I probably wouldn't believe it either, but I swear this is true. So, this all went down when I was in high school, like maybe junior year or so. My dad and I were living on this pretty big stretch of property out in the middle of freaking nowhere, somewhere deep in East Texas. It was one of those old family homes that had been passed down for a couple generations. Real rustic, surrounded by dense woods and far enough from town that it got pitch black at night. Like, if you turned off all the lights, you'd be stumbling around blind. We had deer, coyotes, wild hogs, basically a whole zoo out there, which was pretty normal for us. I loved it though. No neighbors, nobody up in your business. Just us, the trees, and the stars. But then, one summer, it all changed. So, it started with my dad mentioning he'd been hearing weird noises at night. Now, keep in mind, my old man ain't one to get spooked. He was in the military back in the day, and I'm telling you, he's tougher than a $2 steak. But I could tell something had him kinda on edge. He was just acting different. He kept saying he was hearing this low, rumbling growl outside his window around 2 or 3 in the morning. At first, I tried to say that it's probably a coyote or something, but nah, he was sure it was something different. One night though, I heard it too. I was up late playing video games as usual, and I had my window cracked open because it was stupid hot. That's when I heard it, a deep, guttural growl that didn't sound like any animal I'd ever heard. And it was close, and like it was right on the other side of the wall. I froze for a second, thinking maybe it was just my imagination, but then I heard it again, louder this time. And I'm telling you, my skin just crawled. I crept to the window, barely breathing, and peeked out, but it was way too dark to see anything. All I could make out were the shadows of the trees swaying a bit in the breeze. The growling stopped, but it was dead quiet after that. Not even the crickets were chirping. That's when you know something's off, so I shut the window, locked it, and went to bed trying to convince myself it was just a raccoon or something, even though deep down I knew that was bull. Over the next week, things started getting seriously weird. We'd wake up to find claw marks on the siding of the house, long, deep scratches that looked like something had been trying to rip its way inside, and our trash cans, which were these heavy metal ones, were knocked over and torn up like they were made of tin foil. My dad tried setting up trail cams, but whatever it was must have been smarter than the average critter, 'cause they never caught a thing. But then came the night that I'll never forget. I was dead asleep when I was jolted awake by this loud crash that shook the whole house. My dad was already up and running for his shotgun, and I followed him, my heart pounding like crazy. The sound was coming from the back of the house, so we crept down the hallway, trying to be quiet. We could hear the scratching and snuffling like something big was nosing around outside. We flipped on the floodlights, and for a split second I saw it, something that looked like a huge dog, but was walking on its hind legs with these freaky yellow eyes that glowed in the light. But as soon as the lights came on, it bolted into the trees, moving so fast it was almost a blur. My dad was like, "What the hell was that?" And honestly, I had no words. We both just stood there, staring out into the woods, listening to it crash through the underbrush until everything went silent again. We didn't see it the next couple of nights, but the feeling of being watched was always there. And then, just when we were starting to think maybe it had moved on, the real showdown happened. Now, we had this old black bear that would roam our property every now and then. My dad had nicknamed him Big Benny. This bear was a massive old dude, probably one of the biggest I've ever seen, and he was real chill. He'd usually just mind his business, foraging for berries or whatever. But One night, around midnight, we heard this insane commotion outside, growls, roars, the whole 9 yards. We rushed outside with our flashlights and could barely believe what we were seeing. Big Benny was standing on his hind legs, facing off with that dogman thing right in the middle of our backyard. It was like something out of a freaking monster movie. Benny was swiping and roaring, and the dogman was snarling, snapping its jaws. I swear it felt like the ground was shaking from all the noise they were making. The fight didn't last super long, though. Big Benny let out this deafening roar and lunged forward, swiping at the dogman's face. The dogman yelped, spun around, and took off into the trees like a bat out of hell. Benny stood there for a minute, huffing and puffing like he was saying, "Yeah, you better run," before he eventually lumbered off back into the woods. We checked on Benny a couple of days later, 'cause we figured he might be hurt after that fight, but he was just chilling by the creek like nothing happened, with a few scratches on his side, but otherwise fine. As for the dogman, that thing was gone, like for good. We never heard or saw it again after that night. I guess whatever it was, it figured out it wasn't worth messing with Big Benny. My dad still talks about it sometimes. And yeah, it sounds insane, but you'll never catch me camping out in those woods alone again, I can tell you that. So, yeah, that's my crazy cryptid story. I don't know what that dogman was or where it came from, but thank God for Benny. That bear was like our own personal cryptid bodyguard. Listen up, because I don't usually tell people this story, but y'all are going to want to hear it. So, this was back when I was like 10 years old or so, summer of 2012. My family used to send me and my cousin to our grandparents' cabin way out in the sticks, like middle of nowhere, West Virginia. And I'm talking no cell service, no internet, just woods, bugs, and us trying not to die of boredom. So one day, me and my cousin, he's a year older than me, are messing around outside. We'd explored most of the woods near the cabin, but that day he found like a secret trail and he wanted to check it out. And of course, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. I mean, we didn't have much else to do anyway. We head off down this sketchy little path, pushing through branches and all that. After like 20 minutes of hiking, we end up in this weird clearing we'd never seen before. And it was quiet, man, like too quiet. No birds, no wind, just that freaky kind of silence where you start hearing your own heartbeat, you feel me? I didn't say anything, but I was definitely getting those horror movie vibes. We come across this dried up creek bed, and my cousin's like, let's see if we can find some animal tracks. He's all into that nature stuff. Me, I'm just trying not to get eaten by mosquitoes the size of small dogs. So, we're poking around, kicking rocks and whatever, when we hear it a low rumbling kind of sound. Like, not a growl exactly, but deep, like it was coming from something with a massive chest. I turned to my cousin like, bro, did you hear that? And he's already looking behind me, eyes wide as saucers. I spin around and dude, I'm telling you, I thought I was seeing things. There was this thing crouched behind a clump of trees, and at first I thought it was just like a huge boulder or something. But now this thing starts moving. It was covered in this nasty dark fur, all tangled up with sticks and crap, and it starts to stand up. And man, it kept getting taller and taller, like, no joke, it had to be at least 8-9 feet tall when it finally straightened up. Its eyes, though, dude, they were this sickly yellow, like they were glowing or something, and they were locked right on us, just staring us down. I was frozen, like a total idiot. My cousin, though, he's way smarter than me. He grabs my arm and goes, "Run!" And that's all it took, man. I was out of there so fast. I think I left my shadow behind. We're sprinting through the trees, branches slapping me in the face, and I can hear this thing crashing behind us. And let me tell you, it was fast. Way too fast for something that big. I'm panting, my legs are burning, but I see the old shed up ahead and I'm thinking, if we can just make it there, maybe we'll be safe. We somehow scramble over this busted up fence like freaking Olympic athletes and dive behind the shed trying to catch our breath. And then silence, like dead silence. We're sitting there, barely breathing, and after what feels like forever, we peek around the corner. Nothing. Whatever that thing was, it was gone. Just disappeared like it wasn't even real. But dude, I know what I saw. My cousin knows it too, even if we don't really talk about it anymore. We never told our grandparents or our parents' cause, like, who's gonna believe two dumb kids saying they saw a monster in the woods? But I swear, man, it was real. I don't know if it was a Sasquatch or some kind of cryptid nobody's ever seen, but that thing was not from this world. Since we're all sharing weird stuff that's happened to us, here goes. So, this was back when I was a teenager, maybe 14 or 15. My dad and I had this whole routine where we'd take these late night walks. See, he used to work these crazy shifts that messed up his sleep schedule. So when he'd get home all wired and restless, he'd be like, "Hey, want to take a walk?" And I mean, it was kind of our thing, so of course, I'd go with him. Now, we lived in a pretty chill suburb. Nothing ever really happened there. The area was super safe, and everyone knew everyone. But there was this one road on the edge of the neighborhood that always felt a little off. It was the kind of place where, once you turned down it, the streetlights were few and far between, and it was mostly lined with thick trees. It wasn't a long road, maybe about a mile stretch that looped back into the neighborhood, but past a certain point, it just felt different. We headed out for one of our usual walks. It's probably like midnight and everything's dead quiet. I remember it was one of those nights where there wasn't even a breeze and the air was kind of thick. The type of night where you can hear every little sound, the crunch of gravel under your feet, the occasional rustle of leaves, all that. Normally, that was the part we loved about our walks. But this time, I don't know, it just felt heavier. Anyway, we're just talking about whatever, probably some boring stuff like school or work. When we get to that darker part of the road where the trees start closing in, there's this one little plot of land right there that's always creeped me out. It's like someone owns it, but they clearly haven't touched it in years. It's all overgrown, with this one janky streetlight flickering above it. Honestly, it looks pretty chilling. We're passing by that spot, and mid-sentence, my dad just stops, like dead in his tracks. I'm still rambling on, not realizing he's not next to me anymore until I look over and see him standing completely still, staring at that overgrown plot. I'm about to ask what's up when he grabs my arm, pulls me close, and whispers, "Don't move." Now my dad's this big, tough guy, 6 feet 5 inches, built like a linebacker, never scared of anything. So seeing him like that freaked me out more than whatever he was staring at. I go to ask him what's wrong, but he clamps his hand over my mouth, and that's when I see it. There, in that dim circle of light from the flickering street lamp, there's this creature. At first, it looked like a hunched over dog or something, but then it stood up, and holy crap, it was like nothing I'd ever seen. This thing was covered in thick, patchy fur, like it'd been rolling around in mud and leaves. It was about 4 feet tall, but it had these freakishly long limbs and a hunched back. Its eyes, though, those are what really got me. They were this unnatural yellow color, almost glowing, like a pair of headlights, reflecting back at us. I'm just standing there, frozen trying to figure out if my eyes are playing tricks on me, when another one of these things slinks out from the shadows behind the first one. This one's even taller, with these long, spindly fingers that it kept flexing like it was testing the air or something. And I swear they were making these weird clicking sounds, like a bunch of bugs chittering. It was the creepiest sound I've ever heard. At this point, I'm practically shaking. My dad's grip on my arm is like a vice, and I can tell he's trying to figure out what the hell we're looking at. These things are just standing there, like they're trying to decide whether we're worth bothering with. I'm praying they just turn around and slink back into the trees, but instead, a third one comes creeping out of the brush. This one's even weirder. It's got patches of fur missing, and its skin looks all rough and scaly underneath, almost like a mix between a reptile and a mammal. The three of them huddle together for a second, like they're having some kind of silent conversation, and then, just like that, they dart toward the woods. But the way they moved, it wasn't normal. They were running on all fours, but their limbs moved like they were double jointed or something. Like, imagine a spider, but with fur and way too many elbows. I've never seen anything move like that before. As soon as they disappeared into the tree line, my dad doesn't even hesitate. He scoops me up, all 150 pounds of teenage awkwardness, and books it. I'm bouncing around on his shoulder like a rag doll while he's sprinting back towards the house. I don't think I've ever seen him run that fast, and I was legit scared we weren't gonna make it back. When we finally got home, he slammed the door shut, locked every single bolt, and immediately went to grab every flashlight and floodlight we owned. He stayed up all night installing motion detectors around the house, and even went out the next day to get a huge guard dog. We never talked about it after that. Anytime I brought it up, he just shut me down with a quick, "Forget about it." I still think about that night sometimes, like, what were those things? They weren't human, that's for damn sure. But they weren't any animals I've ever seen either. Some kind of cryptid? Demons? Hell, maybe even aliens? I don't know. But whatever they were watching us. And the way they moved, the way they communicated with each other, I don't think we were supposed to see them. 15 years later, I still get chills whenever I walk past a dark patch of woods, and you can bet your ass I'm not going back down that road ever again in this lifetime. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a comment below. Your feedback helps me create more content you'll love. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more updates. See you in the next video.